But they hear your voice.
Okay, here's my voice. So we look at these abstracts to give you an idea of what JCUs consider to be a good abstract. And then those are the first two. I will tell you why they're good. And then we look at the other sample abstracts, and the problematic parts are black to give you a hint. You don't have to look at everything. It's like there's already a hint with what we thought needed some more work. So the first abstract is very short. This paper aims, here's the aim, to describe applicative verbs and applicative constructions in Dante. So this is from this article is from your area. So the aim of the paper, description of verb constructions. So and then the aim is the description. The result is the prefix, whatever, is attached to double voiced verb bases. Which have two arguments. So we have the aim and we have the result. And that was fine for JCUs. No. So like people can think like, okay, what do you do when you describe grammatical constructions? You look at your data. They didn't say who they got it from, whatever, but for them that was fine, very clear. We learn more about verb constructions based to voice in language spoken in Indonesia. They were fine with it. They didn't find problems with it. And this is a JC's article, so if you look up, we don't have keywords here. We could have added the keywords in. So if you know the website for JCOs? So if you look up the website for JCOs at UHP, University of Hawaii Press, and you go into Bantik or Bantik, whatever you say, verbs, you should find the article or go to Google and then you can look at it, what the keywords are, because this was an accepted paper. This was printed. Next one, the second one. This is kind of a log, right? It also was accepted. And this is actually, yeah, this is longer, but because they liked it, they accepted it. So the first one, aim, result. It's okay. Second one, Barito is a large group of languages located where traditionally this is how the languages have been regarded. So you first say what you talk about, then you talk about the traditional view, and then it has been noted, however, so you point out an observation. I told you that your research question is usually triggered by an observation. So it has been noted, however, that these languages are only loosely related, and their relationship to each other is usually not universally agreed on. So here's your observation that triggers further research. So there are different results in the literature. So now I look at it, because people say different things, I look at it. And so he says this paper, very humble attempts to, humble is always good, attempts to define the subgroup with exclusively, so he gives a limitation. He just talks like this is only shared phonological innovations. So this attempts to define the subgroup based on shared phonological, but these innovations don't Instead, sound changes are spread, and there's not a single sound change that can be cited as a linking, right, for a hypothesis. So, first, this is what I talk about. Second, my research question. Third, this has been said, but I found that instead. Next one. It is argued that this distribution supports a linked network. So he talks about the, so like he investigates two aspects, and that's fine. And then after presenting everything, he presents his argument and says, oh, this is probably part of an ancient dialect network. So Paul Sidwell said this is a piece of art because of how he argues. It's not this, but we can rather look at it as that. It's not this, but we can argue it is that. So he has two arguments, two things he looks at, and then so this is what we talk about. I make an observation. I look further into it, and rather than what people thought, I have evidence that it is something else. Instead of looking at it like this, I have evidence it is that. And that's why the abstract is a little bit longer, because he has some argumentation in there. So like his arguments were a little too complicated to put it into the 150 abstract. But when you look at the paper, you can find it under JSUS too. It's in the latest issue. You will see, like, it's very thorough, but it's still clear. Lots of data. He really has to argue here, because so many people already talked about this and said this is not right. I have evidence for a different interpretation. So, because the argumentation was a little bit complicated, we find a bit of argumentation in the abstract. But the first one didn't need argumentation. This is just an observation of data. You know what I mean? The second one, you already have an opinion, and he works against it. So he had to argue a little bit more. So this, he has to argue. The first one, you don't have to argue. There's no view on how these verbs are. There's just new data, new description. This is own descriptions with a different view. So he presents new data, but he has to argue against the old description. So that's why the abstract is a little bit longer. But the first one is totally fine. And you see when I say abstract and all these things, there's no template, like one fits all. It doesn't work. It really is a matter of your paper.
So this is the word count?
The word count, this exceeds the word count. If you can put it into a short abstract, it's always good, but they want the information. And then if your paper passes the initial review, so that the editor is the first person who reviews your paper. If he thinks, oh, this is good enough to send on to reviewers, the reviewers will give you feedback too and say this could work on a little bit. Reviewers are usually quite helpful. There's another thing with reviewers. This is a double-blind review. So people generally are not polite. So they see this, they don't know who wrote it, and they know that the writer, the author, will not know who they were. Sometimes you can guess who wrote something because we're specialized in certain things, but theoretically it is a blind review. So sometimes the reviewers are kind of blunt and kind of rude piece. Ah, this is useless, or the author doesn't know what he knows. They can also say, oh, it's brilliant, whatever. And then the editor is kind of like a mediator. So the editor may take the review and take a few blunt accusations or whatever out. And then it's also, the editor is not your mentor, but the editor is a mediator. He may adjust the language a little bit, the tone of voice, and then, let's say you have a second review, the editor, the reviewer, we had one paper that two reviewers, one said it was kind of okay, the other one said, oh, I think it's weak, but the editor thought it was good enough for publication. So even the reviewers were kind of hesitant to accept it. They are reviewers, not the editor. So the editor said, no, I want the data, this is good enough. And then the editor may also tell you, like, can you please do something here? Can you please do something there? Can you please shorten your abstract or expand your abstract a little bit? That's where the editor comes in. So I know of like two papers that I had submitted where we said, no, this is good enough. So the reviews gave good impact. So the paper did get better through the review, but it didn't fully satisfy at least one of the reviewers, but it satisfied us. So, you know, that happens too. Okay, now the sample abstracts. So I want you to look at the sample abstracts, and I want you to tell me what is wrong. What's the problem? So you look. Here's the first one, and you can take. You already have an idea of the first one. Who wants to say something? First one. You have an idea of the first one? Let's read with the first abstract. What do you see with the first abstract? What's wrong? The bold part. In which way is the bold part problematic and the rest is okay? Actually, there's something else. So this looks a lot like a cut and paste thing again. This looks like the author copied part of his introduction, background information, and stuck it into the abstract. So you don't need background information in the abstract. Like the first one, this is a large group in Madagascar. That's enough. Here, Dai belongs to the Daigara, which family has lots of members everywhere. It's a tonal language with 5 tones. You know, these people in this journal, they're all linguists. And the Daikarai paper would be sent to a Daikarai specialist. You don't need to tell the specialist that Thai is a tone language. So that is, even for the introduction, it may be a little bit much. Or like 70 million speakers, it's way too much. Thai has a lot of language content. It's just too much information. What did I tell you? Your abstract is the information in a nutshell. This is way more of a nutshell. That's a lot of husk or something, not a nutshell. And then there's another one, is OT. Researchers working on OT have argued that in the abstract, when you first introduce a word, don't use an abbreviation, say optimality theory. And then later on you can refer to it as OT. But don't say OT first thing in your thing. So abstract number 4, what's wrong with all that?
Yeah.
Huh?
And also paragraphing.
Exactly. Past. Grammar, English hard to understand. And what every sentence is a paragraph. What did we say? One idea per paragraph. And the idea of an abstract is your paper in a nutshell. You don't usually need paragraphs, because the whole idea of the abstract is to give a general idea. So it's only one idea, one paragraph. So what's wrong with number 5?
previous studies?
Yes, it's way too many references, and it's not even clear. People wrote a lot. Yes. Okay. They wrote a lot. And in your literature review, you would then say, what do they have in common? Where do they differ? But here it doesn't belong. Here it's okay to say Central Vietnamese CV hereafter. The here CV hereafter, I actually like it better in the text, in the body of the paper. In the abstract, just say Central Vietnamese. You say it once or twice, it's fine. The abstract, it's fine. Number 6, that's an interesting one. Nothing is bolded. Why? What's wrong about number 6? I told you you have to advertise your. Now what's wrong about 6? Well, it's short. This paper presents an analysis of the tones of 5 contemporary Thai-Kun varieties. They show that some speakers use 6 tones and others have 5. You know what the editor's reaction was? So what? In which way is this relevant? So think about the Pareto linkage hypothesis again. What do these have to have in? So he says, hey, we have an issue. So if okay, you say what you wanted to say. What were you about to say?
I said no findings.
Yes, no findings, and there is no background. Why would it be interesting that some speakers use 6 and some use 5? For example, if you would say there is this observation that some languages reduce tone, the tone of inventory, for example. But there's absolutely nothing. So why? So like, they don't have that. So what? Who cares? There's nothing interesting. Okay, so like, perhaps it is interesting and the person couldn't say it. So like, when you compare this with the Pareto linkage hypothesis paper, this is very short, the other one is pretty long, but the other one says why his research is relevant. They don't say why this research is relevant. You don't even know whether it is relevant. We assume, yeah, it may be relevant, but we don't know. They sure don't say. You see, like, once there was a conference presentation where somebody measured the different realizations of yeah, whatever, in Burmese. They measured like crazy, presented all the details. And why? You say yeah, you say yeah. Your H in Indonesian, sometimes it's more like a kind of thing, sometimes it's more a perfect thing. If you want to measure that, fine, but you need to tell me why. What does it relate? Yeah, the last one is quite obvious. When you look at the last one, over several generations, supplementary anthropology has become an established academic discipline grounded way too long, and it doesn't say anything. Do you notice that this abstract has absolutely no information? And you write an article about so this was submitted to an anthropology journal. When you submit to an anthropology journal, you don't have to explain to them why anthropology is a good study topic. That is like, if you would submit to JCUs and you would explain us like, oh yeah, it's important to do research on linguistics in this area, like, yeah, you don't have to convince us. So this is, so this is what I just call waffling. When you then, so like, providing a comprehensive account of these diverse traditions, the question is, why do you do that? He doesn't say why he provides this account. Then he says, I attend to 4 significant issues, which is this and that and that. The very last sentence While only a partial of narrative anthropology in Southeast Asia, this article is a provocation to think beyond both the older dynamics of the West versus the rest and the newer constraints of blah, blah, blah. So if you want, so like, in a way he has his purpose there. This is so like, this very one sentence kind of explains what his aim is. So like, you will have to work around that very last sentence and basically dump all the rest. And he says, oh yeah, I look and talk to all the different approaches. Why? Right? So it's just lots of words, not saying much. Is it relevant? So you see a lot style, wrong English, relevance. So now, you all have papers you're writing on, right? You all have papers, right? Can you please not look at your paper, take a pen, and so I'll ask each one of you to give your, imagine you get money for your article published, and you meet me at a conference, and you want me to publish your article. So you come to me and tell me, hey, I have an article, would you be interested in publishing it? And I would ask you, what is it about? And then you have 2 minutes to tell me, otherwise I will run away from you. I will not be interested, because we're just at a conference. I actually was at a conference, I had a poster presentation, and the journal editor came to me and said, I want this. You know, so it got published end of last year. Because he said, oh, you have good data there, I want this. So each of you take your time. Now don't look at your paper. I want to see it out of your head. So like you write down for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. So you tell me what your paper is about. So you do that now, and then we tell each other. Okay? Now, you can use more than 2 minutes to write it down, but I want not more than 2 minutes to hear it. So, I give you 10 minutes, okay, to write your paper in a nutshell. You look very concerned. Can you write down the contents of your paper? What was that?
You mean my paper?
No, I want you to take a piece of paper and you tell me with a maximum of 2 minutes what your paper is about. You want somebody to buy and read your paper, but you have only 2 minutes time to tell what your paper is about. I told you earlier, if you can tell me within 2 minutes what your paper is about, you really know what your paper is about. If you need more time, then I think you need to work a bit more. Try. Okay. Is everything clear to you, or does one of you want to repeat what I said in Indonesian?
Is it the paper with some meaning, or?
No, I want your draft. Okay, each one of you has a draft, right? Right. So now I want to know what your paper is about. I don't want anything written. I want you to write down in can you say that one more time? Do you understand what I want?
Yes.
Okay, say it in Indonesian. Okay. You say what I want, and you say it now, and then you repeat it in English again, and I know whether.
Everybody knows it.
Yeah, I know, but it's still not always clear what I want. So, what do you want in Indonesian?
You mean not the paper is submitted, but any paper?
No, not any paper. The one you submitted. Okay, you.
Yeah, I think I understand that you want us to rephrase or to say what we write in our paper in 2 sentences.
No, it's like a short abstract.
Yeah, right.
But when you tell me you have, it can be cues. It doesn't have to be full sentences. But you have only 2 minutes time to say. So now say one more time.
We must write a very short version of our paper so that
dalam bahasa Inggris.
Yang menuliskan inti dari paper kita yang sudah diserahkan mungkin dalam beberapa kalimat atau bisa juga item-item sehingga ibu ini langsung tahu isi dari paper kita.
Keep this in mind. This is your baby skeleton for this doesn't have to be prose, right? This is really, it can be just keywords. Again, let's say, to go back to my picture of bodies and advertisements, the abstract is the sign in an advertisement. The introduction is the packaging that says what's in there, and then the rest is the actual product. You could also say, what I want to hear from you now is basically, this is a cow, not a buffalo. And then in your paper, you describe the cow to me. But first you say, this is a cow. I talk about a cow. So you say the rough features of a cow. And then you give more details in the paper. So we have 1.5 hours until it's the next break. And in these 1.5 hours, you see that I don't really follow the outline that was given in your thing, because I focus more on problems that we have with the submissions. So we can use these 1.5 hours to talk about the abstract. And while you talk about the abstract and you hear others talking, I hope you use the ideas to rework your abstract if you think you have to, but also think about the structure of your paper. Because I saw some of the papers where I thought the structure needs to be changed. It's not logical. Okay? So like this is what we use these 1.5 hours for abstract and the skeleton, general thoughts about your paper, whether the structure is okay. Like making the crafting, packaging, style and stuff. I'm not talking about that yet. We need to talk more about the substance before we talk about the style, okay? So so we take a few people who feel comfortable to come here and present their abstract. Are you ready yet? Not yet? So 2 minutes. Are you ready? What was your paper about? I think I remember your name. Wait, hey, I know you have a full paper. You can do it. Yeah, come on.
Me?
Yeah. Always dangerous to tell people what you're working on. So, remember, we want it in 2 minutes, not more.
Just tell me.
And we're open. I know we're in Asia, but we do give feedback to each other, okay? We pretend we're Westerners.
Don't worry, we'll count the minute.
I need my glasses. And 3.
Oh,
2 minutes,
okay. 2 minutes.
My research article is about the accuracy and shortcomings of Google Translate, translating English sentences to Indonesian language. My first question to ask is, what is the level of accuracy of Google Translate translating English sentences to Indonesian? And what are the shortcomings of it? Because when I read in some articles, it is said that the accuracy of Google Translate translating English into Asian language is only 46%. And I want to know what about Indonesian language. To do that, I translated 100 Indonesian sentences using Google Translate. And the translated version were examined using MEM-score criteria. MEM-score is the common criteria used by the researcher for translation. And based on the analysis, we found that the level of accuracy of the translation using Google Translate is about 62%, which is higher than any other languages in Asia and African language. I think that's all basically about the research which I done.
Okay, so I have two immediate. Do you have any immediate thoughts to this? Was there enough of your approach? You said sentences,
Yes.
but you didn't say whether they were simple sentences or whether they were complex sentences. You know, you can have a really complicated sentences with clauses, embedded clauses and things, but you also can have very simple sentences. So like, keep your parameters clear. So you need, that's a thing about research, you need clear parameters. You cannot mix simple sentences with words or complicated sentences. So the approach is there, results. Your result is that Google Translator for Indonesian is actually higher than for any other languages. Now, I would want to know why. So is it something about vocabulary, about sentence structure? So like, why is the result higher than for other languages? You know, that would be interesting. Do you know?
Yes, of course.
So what is it? Super.
Google Translate is the machine. It is using a statistical based analysis, and that is why Indonesian people like using Google Translate. And if there are millions of Indonesian people translating it from English into Indonesian, it can be what do you call this? Stored in a memory of the Google machine.
So you say what you say is the database for Google Translate for Indonesian is bigger than for other languages.
Yes, of course. Because Google Translate is not human being. It doesn't have feeling. It cannot translate actually. But they translate using data. If the more people use the machine, the more accurate it will be. And then starting from 2017, it changed drastically. It's not using statistical basis anymore. It's using neural.
So you think the results are better because there's a bigger database?
Yes.
Do you think that, or do you know that?
It's based on research done by Google administration itself that Indonesian people is the 10th. We have 10 rank, in the world.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you realize something? This is very important background information. That could be mentioned earlier. So Indonesian has really is being used a lot. It has a bigger database, and because of that, it has better results. The question then is, what does your study really show? Do you basically confirm what the Google administrators know already, or do you have something new? And do you have suggestions? You don't have to answer that now, but do you know what I mean when I hear this? When I hear this, I think like, okay, what's the background? I said, when we write, we expand knowledge. So like, can you tell us something new?
Yes, actually I did mention it in my article about the background.
Oh,
because,
sure.
Yeah, because I don't have enough time in 2 minutes to tell everything about my research. That's why.
I think it would be good, like just one line about that it's already known that Indonesian has a pretty reliable database, that translations are pretty reliable. That's something that could be added. So you confirm the results, or do you have new results?
I confirm the result that because there is another research, I don't remember the name, Barrier or something, and he mentioned about the quality of Google, which is still in progress. It's not yet finished. It's only about probably 70 to 80%. The level of accuracy when it is translated using European language. From English into Germany, English into Dutch, English into French, it will reach 80%. But when it is attempted from English into African language is only about 46%, and Asian language is around 45%. But my research here actually is based on the complaint made by Indonesian people in general that Google Translate cannot translate sentences. It can only translate phrases or words. But my research rejected the speculation that it's not only translating English phrases or words, but it also translated sentences. You mentioned something about that sentence has complex sentence, simple sentence. I did not work on that. I just work on simple sentence actually.
Okay, then
But
just say I
that.
only did simple sentences. For simple sentences, so that's very important. So when we talk about the data, how clean are your data? How clear are your data? You know, that would be the first thing. So you mentioned it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next one, who wants to give it a try?
Siapa? Pak Tatan.
Come on, don't be shy, just a little bit. Yes, please. 2 minutes, not much. So stick to.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. This is this is the abstract in my article, so I just read it. I just read it that I rewrite it just now. So my study focus on the golden age to become a bilingual like a native. This golden age is related to the child development, namely cognition, physical motor, and language. Thus, this study will discuss about the relation between cognition and language and physical motor relationship to find a period to begin educating the second language simultaneously since early age. The study found that the age 13 to 15 months is the golden age to become a bilingual like a native without losing the native language knowledge and experiencing any obstruction. In my abstract.
So now, the topic, what's your topic?
Bilingualism.
I wanted a bit more specific.
More specific.
Your domain is bilingualism. Domain is bilingualism, okay? The topic is, you basically said, what's the best age for...
Yeah, to educate the second language.
So it's, this is in the background of people in Indonesia want their children's English to get better. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So there is this is the same in Thailand and anywhere in Asia. People want their children's English to get better so that they have more chances to get a good job and kind of stuff. So the topic is second language acquisition of English for Indonesians. The research question is, when is the best age for second language, English as a second language? Your approach, what's your approach?
Social psychology?
No. What is your methodology? How do you find out what the basic...
By questionnaire. By questionnaire?
So you use questionnaires?
Yes.
So, who were the people you use the questionnaires for? Not the babies, we know.
I use questionnaire for Chinese Indonesia families.
Okay, what did you ask in your questionnaires?
Yeah, actually I asked about when they start to educate the second language.
Okay, and so they will give you different ages. And how do you verify that? How do you verify that the children who hear English at the age of like 15 months, that their English is better? So like, do you know what I mean? You say the best age is 13 to 15 months. That's what you say. But how do you know it's the best age? So you have a questionnaire and you ask people how, when they started learning English, right? But
it's not English for the second language. It's Indonesia. But in my Chinese for the first language, mother tongue, and Indonesian
so it's
is
not
the
English.
second.
Okay, sorry. So it's Chinese and Indonesian.
Yeah.
So the topic is Indonesian as a second language for Chinese families.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the research question. Who learned Indonesian best? Then you do an approach, you give out questionnaires, and do you give out questionnaires? Like, did you measure whether somebody is really good in Indonesian or not so good? So like, how did you evaluate your questionnaires?
Evaluate the parents or
The question.
the questionnaires, the instrument of the questionnaire, the question of
I'm not sure I understand. So like, topic, good Indonesian for Chinese people. Research question, when is the best age?
yeah. Yes.
Approach, how did you find out? I didn't entirely understand. If you just say questionnaires, I don't understand. So like, do you have the different answers for different people? So like, somebody help me. You know, I do not know how you evaluated your data. So you just give out questionnaires, and then the people say, "Oh, I learned it since I was a baby, and my Indonesian is quite good." So like, is it just you trust what they say?
I do a percentage on the result of the questionnaire. Which one is big? I mean, more. What is it? Which one is bigger? Which one is educating the language in this age, and which one is the other age?
Okay.
I divided into 5 periods. From 0 to 12 months, 12 months to I still found that.
Okay, so now I have the background literature. There's a lot of literature on language acquisition, right? So you say the best results are accomplished when children learn between 13 to 18 months. So how do you see your results in the background of existing knowledge? So do you have a literature review on language acquisition?
Yes, I have.
So what does the literature say?
The literature says that the age 0 to 5 months, can be said as the golden age. The golden age to educate the child. So I narrow the age, and because some say that educating 2 languages since early age can be dangerous.
Who says that? Okay, I did.
From the literature I read.
I did my PhD in language acquisition. Okay,
Okay.
acquisition. That's why I really like.
Okay.
So the literature you're reading.
It is dangerous for production, not comprehension. It can be production delay.
Yes.
My
daughters are bilingual. They started a little later. But when you when you read literature on multiple language acquisition, it actually, okay, they produce a little later. Okay, basically what I'm talking about, do you really have literature, general literature about language acquisition in multiple languages, you know? This is very important to make sure you have generally acknowledged and known literature. You cannot use studies from just something from Indonesia or something from China or stuff. You need to make sure, like when somebody looks at your article, they want to know whether you know basic research just in general, and then you apply it to your study, because you know about the critical phase that people say after you're 16, it is very hard to learn a different language, a new language. That's about around 16, because then the networks in your brain don't really start expanding. Like you don't easily, you know, each language is like a street map in your brain, and so like when you have several languages, you just have a more defined street map. You have more little streets you can zoom on. So the more languages you know, the easier for you it is to learn new languages, because you have all these networks and these neural networks. So when I hear golden age, first, golden age is kind of an interesting term which I never heard, and then second, you need to compare this with previous studies where they say, okay, you remember the Barito linkage abstract? Previous studies said this, but I say this, or I confirm previous studies. Confirming is fine. No?
In abstract or in introduction?
In the abstract too. If you say previous study, they say this, like the Barito, the long one. That's a nice abstract. So previous studies say this. My research question is, what's the best age? Can this be confirmed? Then you do your research and you say, yeah, it is. So in your abstract you say, previous research says this. I did a study, and I can say, you can modify the results. In your case, it's a modification, right? Okay, thank you. So do you get that? Do you get that? So like, why I said like, this was not entirely clear, because the background was missing. Okay, one more time perhaps, one more? Okay, I'm interested in, I forgot your name, sorry. Yeah, because I'm interested in your article, tell me. I'm interested in this article, actually, I mean, there are several articles that I'm interested in, but we just talked about it, so that's why. Okay. So try to follow this, and not just this, like I said, keep the background in mind of where you find research in comparison to the world understood.
A lot of in the middle of 20th century, researchers found that Tsar language as the only one Austronesian language found in Highland has some genetic relationship with Cham, a subgroup of Austronesian. Another language, Argenis, located in the northernmost of Indonesia, is also found to have a relationship with a subgroup of Austronesian, Cham. However, few researchers have been done to compare two languages, how close they are related. So my hypothesis is that Tsar is surrounded by Sino-Tibetan and Thai-Kadai languages, maybe it has a lower Austronesian percentage than Argenis, since Argenis is surrounded by a big group of Austronesian languages. However, and the charm, but the percentage of charm genetic relationship might be higher than the Argenis language. To test this hypothesis, I use a Swadesh list as instrument to look for cognates of Argenis and Tat language, and then compare the percentage to calculate the percentage of Tat cognates in terms compared with Proto-Austronesian and percentage of Argenis with Proto-Austronesian, and then percentage of Argenis Tat with Proto-Cham, and percentage of Argenis with Proto-Cham, respectively. But the result is quite different. To our surprise, to my surprise, that although they are geographically far from each other, the percentage of Argenis, sorry, I don't quite remember the result, but it's quite different from what I from the hypothesis. The percentage of charm, genetic percentage, the percentage of relationship or cognates of Argenis is higher, than the percentage of Tat in their relationship with Proto-Cham. I don't remember accurately. And Argenis also has, yes, because of the Austronesian influences from other Austronesian languages, it has a higher percentage of higher percentage of Austronesian genetic relationship.
Okay. So just to rephrase whether I understood correctly. So the topic is a comparison of two Chamic languages. One is surrounded by related languages. The one here is Indonesia, and the other one is surrounded by non-related languages, the one in China. Your research question is, do the surrounding non-related languages have an impact on their vocabulary? Because we all know about language contact situation. That would be where you would need to give a few references in your body about language contact, what people know about language. So your approach is you compare the two languages and you hold it against reconstructions of proto-form. Yeah. And your results are, they either verify, you don't need the results, they either verify or falsify your hypothesis. Let's say you think that mainland Southeast Asia in general has a lot of contact phenomena. You find lots of, let's say, Khmer, Austro-Asiatic words in Tibeto-Burman languages and in Dai-Garai languages. So your hypothesis is there's some interaction, there are contact phenomena, and then you say, is it correct or not? And you could say, perhaps you should have a longer word list for future studies, like verify the results. There's your second article, right? So, so did I understand you correctly?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. As I said, like for your presentation, like just the keywords are fine. So based on, okay, thank you. Based on what we, based on what you heard, does that already give you ideas for how to refine your abstract a little more? So you say something, you say, okay, is this what you talk about? Is this what you talk about? Is that what you talk about? So I hope this gives you ideas. I'm like, okay, wait a minute, I need to be a little clearer. And also, I told you this morning, we look at the literature review. We really want to see that whether you know basic studies, the whole background, and then we will look at newer studies, like Google Scholar, Google, or whatever you call it. Go in there and say language acquisition, Chinese, Indonesian, language acquisition, any contact, and look at the newer studies. Very important. You need to know the classic pieces, but not just those. You need to also know what's in the new literature. Would anybody like another go? Or otherwise I give you a little bit of time now to like work a little bit more on your abstract, like right now. So would somebody like to present something, or would you like a little bit of time on your abstract? Because from what I saw, I hope that some of you changed your abstracts. Some of your abstracts were need change. So I hope this already gave you some input on how to change your abstract. You want to? Don't take this lightly. It's really important for your the bottleneck, like I said, the editor.
Thank you. So the catch is on the camera here. The topic of my paper is theory of problem structure. I start from research questions. Previous studies on problem structure in orders analysis do not successfully explain that problem's content represent human cognition. The research questions, how do problems represent human cognition? And of course, why previous studies on problem structure offer weaknesses in those studies. The result, before the result, based on the observation and analysis, the author tried to put the result of analysis of the previous studies, the quadripartite structure, Milner's model, verb structure, Abraham's models, and topic-common structure, Dundas models, fail to explain the relations of products to people mind. And then I tried to analyze my data. I tried to give counter data. Based on the analysis, I put a new constructed theory of structure of products that is called cognitive structure of products. Yeah, which consists of three people's mind. The first is causal condition structure. Second, if imagining conditional structure, and defining conditional structure. In conclusion, based on the three substructures in people's mind, when they talk, by proverbs, they think in the frame of cause and effect, imagining and defining in mind. That's it.
Okay, thank you. So, a few questions. Your topic is on proverbs. And the structure is proverbs. The research question is the cognitive processing of proverbs. I wasn't entirely clear about your approach. So like, how do you find out? So you talked about previous literature, so you gave a background on previous literature, that is good. And so how do you, so you say like, and it doesn't really, and it's for Indonesian, right? Yes, yes, yes. So you say previous research cannot sufficiently explain the cognitive processes involved in understanding proverbs. So is there a way to explain it so you have a new approach? And I didn't entirely understand your approach. How did you find out? Then you gave your results. That's obvious, but this was the part I didn't really understand. What made you find out what the cognitive processes are? How exactly did you go about it? Just tell us quickly. That's something I would want to know. Okay. What's your approach exactly?
Yeah. Maybe it's a little bit different with your how to say comment on my research. Not by analyzing the structure of proverbs, as you say, the way we proceed in our processing mind in understanding the proverbs, not like that, but when somebody use proverbs, they use frame of mind. When they quote a proverb, they are saying they are thinking in frame of cause and effect, imagining or defining. This is the way I try to explain it. And the approach is I try to observe the previous studies first, and then I try to find the weaknesses of the previous theories from three scholars. After that, I try to offer new data, new cultural data. Yeah. And most of the data are from Indonesian scholars. Yeah, I try to put the framework of mind people when they quote the proverb, and then after that I try to retest, re-examine my theory. Yeah, that is a cognitive structure, I say.
Okay. So keywords for this abstract. Let's talk about keywords. Keywords for this abstract are cognitive linguistics, Indonesian, and proverbs. That would be sufficient. So people will find that article.
Human mind.
Yeah, human mind is, when we talk about linguistics, that's pretty much a thing about mind in general. I don't think you need to specify human mind in the type of journal you write to. So don't be too broad, don't be too narrow. Okay, thank you. Do you have any more questions?
What about the number of keywords? So you
Up to 5. Some people give a lot more. They want 3 keywords. Unless you can also, if you have particular theories, cognitive linguistics theories, you can mention those theories too. 6 keywords if you want to. So you could say cognitive linguistics, this theory, that theory, that theory, Indonesian proverbs. That would be like 3.
commonly asked question is whether we take words from the abstract to be the keywords, or we can like make abstraction of words.
Yes, you do not need to take the keywords from the abstract. They can come from your body. Okay, thank
My
you.
question,
Huh?
did I talk within 2 minutes?
Yes, it was fine. So, on it. As I said, I hope the feedback gave you ideas about how you need to work on your abstract. And perhaps on your paper too. For example, in many cases, I looked at a few papers and the literature review was not complete. It was not enough. In many cases, it needs in a way it needs to be broader, and in a way it needs to be, you really need to specialize on particular L2 language acquisition or monolingual L2 acquisition, for example. So now, I let the mic go around and ask each one of you to tell me what keywords you have in your article. Keywords. What are your keywords? Okay, we listen. We hear the keywords. Let's stick to this one. We said proverbs, cognitive linguistics, Indonesian, and personal theories. Does that give us an idea of whether it may be a relevant article? Okay, the keywords is people. You want people to find it, and you want people to think it's relevant. I told you your abstract is the advertisement, right? So keywords. We listen to that kind of.
So I
go for it.
I understand keyword.
Okay. And then you go. Okay, one more abstract, and then you go. You all can do that abstract. I mean, find it.
So first, I'm sorry because my English is not good. Because I am from Indonesia department, English department. So my topic is the speed level in Japanese. Speed level in Japanese. So the abstract is describe speed level and analytic system in Japanese. And the keyword is speed level and analytic system.
And the language.
The speed level and analytic system. So in this paper, I want to investigate influence of speed level on analytic system in Japanese. And the investigation the investigation was conducted based on empirical data of the Japanese utterance in Japanese society. So I used cultural communication approach. Yeah. And then with this approach, I found and the result is I found 13 speed level in Japanese. This is my abstract.
13. Wow.
13.
What does previous research say about that?
The previous research, in 1979, Putri Dharma was research this topic, and this paper is published in USA.
Okay, so you have previous research. Do your results differ from previous research?
No, yes.
You confirm.
Yeah.
Okay, so why do you do the research?
I think that this not from Putri Dharma, but I researched in this literature research.
So there's a new thing.
Yeah.
Okay, and you need to make clear you need to make clear whether you give something new. Okay? If somebody says, oh yeah, like I said, finding out about the different realizations, like, so what, right? We don't want the editor to ask, so what? So you want to say, this study gave these results based on that kind of data and area. Here comes something, here comes new data. Yes. What are your key terms? The key terms.
Key term is speed level.
Speed level. You don't say that in English.
Speak level.
You mean social register?
Yes.
You know what social register is? So I would say social register. It's not social register.
So like polite and impolite.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's not social register.
Many level in Japanese people.
Oh, times too. So the word for you, it depends on who you talk to and who you are. So you have different you words and you will have different they words.
I think society level.
Yeah, I think, no, it's not, yeah, it is social act. Okay, say social acts, honorific terms, Indonesian, Japanese, you said, right?
Japanese
Okay.
and one is honorific system.
Yeah, honorific terms, social acts, Japanese, yeah, for,
Speed level.
yeah, so,
High class, the low.
yeah, but you don't say speed level. Not a linguistic term. Never mind.
Okay.
We know, like, you need to relate to previous research what they call it, right? Okay, good. Good. So we have keywords. Will these keywords, okay, are the keywords representative for what we heard? I think they are, okay? And will it interest people? Oh, honorific terms, something new on Japanese, something new on social linguistics, right? So, you don't really have social linguistics in the paper, but you can put it into the abstract because it relates to social linguistics, right? So you hear that, okay, something on Japanese, something on, make sure it's something new. Okay, that's fine. Your keyword. Do you want to present your abstract?
Keyword. That's all the keyword.
Yeah.
I will discuss about plural in Arabic. Plural in Arabic.
Okay.
Yeah, because very unique one. Yeah.
That's the topic.
Topic is plural in Arabic, and the differences between Arabic and the comparison with the English. Yeah, because unique one. Plural in Arabic is a unique one because plural start at 3. For English, it start 2 become plural.
So you have inclusive, exclusive,
two people in English become plural, but in Arabic are 3 become start at 3. Whereas can be divided. The plural can be divided into 2 group categories. Regular plural and also irregular plural.
Okay, big question, why?
Yeah, because we have to know the specialization of Arabic plural. It's very unique one. Can be divided into 2 group categories. Firstly, regular, and secondly, irregular or broken plural. The regular plural can be divided into 2 group categories also: masculine, sole plural, and feminine sole plural.
You know, I'm still trying to catch, like, catch time. Just go around it and weekend.
Yeah.
What does it really relate to?
Yes. The keyword is Arabic plural, masculine plural, feminine plural, and broken plural.
But that's not what the paper is about. You know what I mean? It's not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You need something. What is the domain? What's the linguistic domain? It's not syntax.
Morphology. Morphology. Morphology.
Morphology.
Yes.
Comparison morphology.
No, not comparative. The detail of the plural in Arabic. For all people. Yeah, on the Arabic. Yeah. And broken plural also can be divided into two group categories. The number 3 to 10 and 11 to the argument. Then we find also hybrid plural. Hybrid plural is the plural in Arabic. Yes. The hybrid plural, one word can be a plural, we become a plural with regular plural and also irregular. Yeah. Yeah, precisely.
Like all title and keywords.
My topic, politeness of directing speech in colloquial Arabic. Yeah. And then my question is, how is the colloquial Arabic express the politeness? And then I use the theory. There are text action, appropriate action, appropriate action, modification action. And then the result is I thought there are two types that is directive, direct, directive, and the politeness based on text message is expressed by linguistic terms. Appropriate message expressed in cognitive terms. Appropriate message expressed in cognitive terms, and modification expressed in cognitive terms, and the action expressed
So the keywords again, keywords, how many keywords do you have? Okay. So, I suggest we have one more key term thing and then we take a break. We just have our break earlier because it's awfully loud. Okay? Just one quick and then we have our break. Now, it's too loud. So, key terms.
My topic, approach constructive analysis,
Justice narrative.
is discursive, inclusive, organized meaning, and English and English.
Ah, okay.
Yes. For example, in Japanese, he, in Japanese, unaspirated, and in English, aspirated. Top, and in English, top, and in Japanese, to go over unaspirated. Then, by start already speak a pro. Aspirated, then in Japanese is unaspirated. And B in English is unaspirated, but in Japanese is aspirated.
Yeah.
And for example, A in English is aspirated, and in Japanese is unaspirated.
More than 2 minutes.
Japanese aspirated, but in English is unaspirated. Yeah, this is
Okay. Okay, remember, big overview. Now, so we have a break here because it's just too loud to talk. You can work on your keywords or abstracts and read when it's not so loud anymore. Let's have work time. And if you want me, one thing I wanted to say. If you have, so this is a comparative paper. You compare Philippine and English. So there are papers like that. So use papers that were published somewhere. Language acquisition, phoneme inventory comparison, cognitive linguistics, social linguistics. Try to find a paper that kind of is in the same range like yours, and use that to get idea for how to present your findings. That's always helpful. Just use something, and if possible in the article that you wish to publish it. But even if it's not, just try to find them. Okay, let's have a break, and then you can always. Okay, quickly. So this was about abstract and keywords. Okay. If you have questions, you can ask me about keywords, or show me your abstracts, especially if you already think you changed it a little bit. Then next, we'll talk about the body of the paper, because the abstract represents the body of the paper. So we talk about your observation, the literature review, you provide data, present, analyze, discuss, summary of research question, results, conclusion, outlook. And then, so we talk about this, and then I want you to grab your papers and see whether every single point is found in your paper. And see when you think like, oh, I talked about this and I talked about that, whether it's actually needed. You remember this one abstract who says, oh, anthropology has long been being used, that was not needed. Okay, so we have a break now, talk about this later, show me your abstracts if you want to, and we go, you grab your papers and check whether everything that's needed is in there. Okay, so we'll break now. Or do you want to do something right now? Let's have a break, right? Yeah, so an informal break. You can sit here and work, but you don't have to. So so you have some work time now, break time, work time, and we meet. We start talking about this, and you can prepare for that too. like check your paper, in 1 hour. So you have 1 hour to work on your abstract and prepare, if you want to prepare. Check your paper, whether all these points are found in it. Remember the skeleton idea. You can also go and look for papers, download papers in JCOs, for example, or, I mean, your Arabic paper will not go to JCOs. So like, go to the journal where you would like to get it published and look at a similar article. Please do that. Look at a similar article. Okay. So, work time.